Hi, I'm Wayne from TC Electronics and Marine, and what we're going to try and show you is how you can repair the usually just the forward gear is required, but occasionally the forward and reverse can be required to be machined. So to start off, what we have is this particular unit here. It's just a regular Cobra. It's a V8 or 6-cylinder, it's the same. Okay, and we're repairing it for a customer, and it was sort of slipping out of gear. And what we're going to show you is that by doing a couple of things, you can save the gear set quite often. Okay, one of the things is to change the detent here. This is a newer style detent. Just going to grab one and show you. Okay, this is a 27720 detent, it's called, and that's a clutch dog. And the reason I'm showing you those is what happens is on this repair, this is the person's reverse gear here, and I'm not sure how well you can see it, but we've machined the edge here so that it is almost sharp. Okay, we've taken about 30 thou off. Okay. And you can see that there's very little of a left. We just left a little bit on there of the angle that was worn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the worn gear. Unfortunately, I don't have this. It was an afterthought to show you this video. The customer, I was trying to explain what we do. He kind of didn't grasp it, and I kind of understand why. So basically what I said to him, for a half-hour labor we can machine the forward and reverse gear, and that he'll probably get another 250 to 300 hours out of it after we machine it. Whereas it wouldn't go into forward or reverse the way it was, and yet he had switched the shift cable to a new shift cable. At least that's my understanding of it, if I got it correctly. I believe so. At any rate, I'm going to put that down, and I'm going to try and get a picture of this. Not sure if you can see it or not, but that corner on the tooth there, okay, it's worn about 1/16 of an inch. This one even more so, almost 1/8 of an inch down. So when the clutch dog goes to engage on that, it will just slip off of it, or it will catch minimally. And that's so something like this, rather than throw the gears out. Now the other thing is this is the forward one here. Okay, and it's the same thing. We machined it. We left some of the so we can see it here. There we go. That's about all I can do. Okay, so you can see that I couldn't take it all off, or we would be down too deep and then it wouldn't engage enough. But And I left enough so it wouldn't have a burr on it. I probably could have took another 1/10 thou off on this, but I left it at that so it wouldn't have a burr when it was engaging. But normally if you machine the edge and you take it down so that the clutch dog can engage about half the tooth, which is what it does, about 1/8 of an inch it engages in, and you install a new clutch dog, and you'll see the clutch dog. Let's see if we can get a half decent picture here. Okay, there's a pretty good picture. It has a slight rounded edge at the very top, but basically it's pretty tight. There it is. There's the best picture I can get, I think. You see, it's got about a less than a 1/64 of an inch, a very small radius, maybe 10 or 15 thou actually, over top. The rest of it, the tooth engages, and there's a 5-degree angle from the top of the tip of that down, so that when this engages, it actually pulls it together. It actually pulls the clutch dog up into the forward gear when you're going in forward. And sometimes what can stop this, in this particular case anyhow, we took out about 50 feet of fishing line that was stuck inside the I mean, this is a new one. We put new seals and stuff in and a new bearing, but we found about 50 feet of line in there. And what that can do is it can stop the clutch dog traveling on the prop shaft, because there's no play. And often that if there isn't enough play to move the clutch dog out of the way, the teeth can get rounded off in a hurry. The other thing that will round the teeth off in a hurry is if you have the RPM. I would say that a maximum would be around 650. On most of the books for the V8s, they're at 550 to 575 on setup. That's what they're supposed to idle off at. If you could get it around 600 or less, 625 at the most, because around 725, 825, you're gonna round that clutch dog's not gonna last very long. 850, 900, you're just gonna round it right off. 10 or 20 shifts, and it's not gonna go into gear anymore. Okay, so the Detent that I showed you here, the new style one, it has a small groove in it, and it has a step, and then it has a secondary step. Sure how. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that back. You can see the first step, the ball sits in, then it goes to the second step, and then it slides up over onto the top area way up here as it travels. So your shifter would sit like this, and this would go up and down. Okay, and it should go in and out and come out of gear. Well, the older style one would take about sometimes 15-20 pounds to get this to go up, and this would stretch the shift cable. And as the shift cable gets stretched, there's less movement of the clutch dog. There's no, you lose the with the play in the line of the shift cable, you lose the movement of the clutch dog, which I'm going to put this together in a minute. But basically, it just, the clutch dog slides back and forth here on the inside here, and you lose that momentum if you stretch the cable. You also lose the momentum if it's not adjusted correctly. So added to this video, I've just we don't own, share, or do anything, but we do carry a plate here. Really can't see it too well the way it is. Anyway, you get the idea. This clips over top of the bolt pattern that's there and shows you exactly where it's supposed to line up. This one goes in the engine compartment. Okay, and your piece goes on there. One goes here, one goes there, and it shows you where the lineup is right there in the middle. Okay, there's a drawing that comes with this, and we're including these, and I think they're for sale on the web at sterndrive.info. If not, there is someone we are purchasing this off who's on the web right now, and they're around $30. They're not great if you drop them. If you have a shop, you probably want the aluminum one, which we also sell, but it's around 150 bucks. But for the guys who's just doing one and wants to make sure that the shift cable is set properly before he puts his drive back on, this is an excellent tool for the money. Okay, and the fact that it's got a set of instructions and it lines up fairly good. Most people have been happy with this, except for the very first one I received. It came in and it was broke, believe it or not, in half. This one here, we just glued it together and used it anyhow to see how it worked. And the last 10 or 20 we've got, there hasn't been a broken one. I don't know what happened. Something must have landed on it. The other thing is when I'm doing the repair on these, we're going to change the bearings and the gear. Some of the bearings, like the prop shaft bearing and the dry shaft bearing. This is a dry shaft bearing, by the way. And if you're changing it, make sure you read the letters on it, because if you read it closely, it says this side up. So this side up, okay, is a little bit wider than the bottom of it. So it's about a 3 or 5 thou taper on this bearing so that you can slide it in. So it goes in much easier if you keep the side up that you're putting it into, like, you know. It's probably easier to do it than to explain it. But the bottom here, okay, is a taper. So you push it into the unit. I'm just gonna physically show you. Okay, so you're gonna take this, and basically, if this says this side up, which I don't know it does. No, it didn't. So I almost, okay. So this says this side up here. You need to have a look. Then you drop it in like so. You use a tool that looks like this, or a socket, or whatever you like, whatever does the job for you. If you're only doing one, I don't suggest you buy an install kit to do one. And you just tap that down until the screw, the locking screw, okay, that's a small locking screw. And the locking screw goes right there. Okay, if the locking screw won't go in, you don't have the bearing down all the way. So the bearing's got to go all the way down so the locking screw can hold it in. Okay, that out of the way. you need to inspect the teeth. So in this guy's case, the teeth were really nice. So there would be, okay, actually it's a nice heel to toe mesh, and I'm quite certain this guy will get 200 to 300 hours out of this easy. And if he slows down his engine speed and he uses the gauges to check to put a new shift cable in, he'll be very happy with it, even though he didn't change the gears. And even though it was slipping out of gear originally. You do pick up about a 32nd of an inch by changing the detent. It goes in and out of gear much easier. It isn't, the cable doesn't have the same drag. And with the sharp tooth, it pulls it in as well. So, but you got to have all of this when you start. Like, you can't have a rounded off clutch dog and new gears, or you can't have rounded off gears and a new clutch dog. It won't work. It will just round the clutch dog off in very short time. And yet, if you just send the gear in and have it machined, which takes about 15 minutes, almost nothing, you can machine off, you know, take 10 or 15 thou off and extend the life of the gears. But make sure that before you go to that effort of that the heel to toe on these teeth, okay, look good. All right, make sure they look like, you know, this is a 15 or 20-year-old gear. It has about 300 hours on it, he said, but it's still in very good shape, you know. Could go another 10-15 years. Now, the thing to look for, though, is this is another unit here that came in, and I couldn't use them because we didn't want to take the chance. There was nothing, the lugs on this were worn a very, very small amount. They would have been usable. They especially would have been usable if we took 10 thou off. They would have been like new. But if you look here, you'll see that the salt water has done a number on it. And more than likely, particles would come off, a piece of the tooth would come off, and it would end up in there. And it was the forward and reverse. The pinion was the biggest problem, where you can see that where it's been eaten away there. So when it looks like that, even though there's no broken teeth on this at all. There's just, you can see where the salt water's just dissolved it. He put it away in the winter time, and he left the water. I'm not sure if it was salt water. I think he said it was just fresh water, actually. So it wasn't even salt water. It was fresh water, and it still rusted away like this. It also broke the case in this particular outdrive that we were working on. So we actually couldn't save almost anything. It was all corroded inside. So if you have a broken tooth, or your heel to toe has got big holes in it, then there's no sense machining the teeth, okay? It's not likely to stand up. And that's about it. I just kind of wanted to explain that. I'll take a video of it after I get it put together for anybody who, the shafts and stuff. And don't forget, when you're putting your unit together, that you need some Loctite on the threads there. and keep everything as clean as you can, from the top all the way to the inside. Preferably put some zinc chromac in there, or at least wire brush it out really good. Use some solvent of some kind and make sure there's no dust in there, because if you leave anything in there, it's going to end up jamming between the pinion and the forward gear, and you're going to have little tiny pieces coming out of the pinion gear, and it's going to limit the lifetime of your outdrive. So I mean, once you've gone this far to clean it up, you know, and take an extra half hour to paint the inside and, you know, really clean it up to make sure that there's no junk inside, it's well worth it. Okay, I thought I would just do that gear. It's very hard to tell the way, but this is the forward gear that I just showed you a minute ago, that matches this reverse gear here, where it's kind of chewed up. Okay, and this is what it looks like after it's cleaned up. You can see that the clutch dog will have no problem biting into that. You know, we did lose a little bit of travel, maybe 15-20 thou, but that's nothing. If you put a new shift cable in and a detent, you'll make up almost 60 thou. So taking 15 off is no big deal. And you can see that wall there, that taper looks still like it's at about 5 degrees. It's still true. So you should have no trouble. This person should have no trouble at all biting in with the clutch dog and getting, you know, 200-300 hours, which for some people could be 10 years, you know, depending on how many hours you stick on your boat a year. So just thought I'd share that with you. Thanks for watching. I'm not sure if I mentioned it or not, so 87656 is the seal kit number, and when you're putting the O-rings together, underneath the top and the bottom, you need some gasket compound, and that's, I can't see it too well. This is 680 Loctite. We buy it in a large container and we put it in the smaller ones to make it easier. Actually, one with a real thin throat on it makes it apply much easier. But if you, on the outside of the oil seals, if you put the 680 Loctite, it will hold it in place even if you pressure test it at 25 or 30 pounds. Whereas if there's play in it and you use gasket compound, it's liable to push these seals out here. Okay, so using 680 Loctite is your best bet, and you have to clean the inside of and wire brush the inside of the housing before you install the Loctite, and you put the Loctite on the seal and the housing. Wipe off the excess. And it works excellent. Occasionally we used to have a leak with other methods. I don't remember out of the last 200 or 300 outdrives that ever having a leak here now after using 680 or 609 Loctite. Works. There's one other thing. When you're taking one of these things apart and putting it together, and the heel to toe is good on here, don't re-shim it. Just go with the same shims. Okay, put the same thrust washer, the same shims, and the same bearing in. You cannot switch them up. If they're in good shape and it was only slipping out of gear, reuse all of those things, because if you change it around, then the heel to toe mesh is not going to be the same. It's going to be out, and then you're going to put a lot of unnecessary wear in on the gears. Whereas this way, it'll go exactly the way it came off, and it'll mesh really well, and there'll be no break-in period required. For anyone that doesn't know what 680 Loctite, this is the way it comes. You definitely don't want a large tube like that. I dropped it on the floor one night and you know, went in, and about a quarter of it leaked out, which means I lost about 80 bucks, okay, on the big one. So ever since then we just stick it into real small ones like that. Bought these off of eBay. We got about 10 or 20 of them we use. That way if you drop it on the floor, you lose about 5 or 10 drops. That's it. So this is the way they sell it. Comes in a, I think this is 20 mil or something, and this one is half a mil, this one here. And that one there is actually enough. If you one or two of those will do most of the seals, all the seals on say one drive, the lower part. If you're doing the upper at the same time, you'd need about 3 of those, or possibly one of those. I'll try and read this. Okay, it's decimal 3-4 fluid ounces, I believe. Anyway, hopefully you can see it better than me. And the large ones are not necessary. They're very expensive. And unless you go through a lot like us, it will expire because there's an expiry date on them. By the way, it does have an expiry date, but I'm yet to see. I've used 1-year-old past the expiry, and I can't see any difference. There would probably be a difference if it mattered, but we don't come anywhere near the limits of 680 Loctite. I mean, we're putting a seal on, and you know, we need to hold it with 10-20 pounds. This Loctite sets up to 1,720 pounds per square inch. You know, so after a year you'd probably lose its strength value, I guess, you know, maybe 500 pounds. It's not something you'd likely have to worry about putting seals in. Moving on, there's gaskets here, and the gasket compound, you need a couple of coats on this before you install it, preferably. Makes it thicker, doubles its size, and it will just squeeze out if you put too much on, and it'll just do a better job of sealing and stopping the water from getting in. And better than that, it helps when you're pressure testing it to make sure you have no leaks. When I first started, that used to be one of my problems. I didn't put enough gasket compound. Wouldn't leave it overnight. I didn't have enough patience, and half the time I'd be getting bubbles out the top of the shift cable. I mean, this is a Cobra and it's got the square shift cable, but with the 800s it's the same configuration, and you know, if I just would have waited and put an extra coating on a couple hours, makes a big difference if you're pressure testing and you want to leave it overnight. Otherwise you're going to come back in the morning and the air is going to be out of the unit. Okay, it's just one other thing I just wanted to mention is that often the new clutch dogs don't come with any information anymore. They used to have a circle around it, so there's a thick side and a thin side. By that I mean this side here is usually sitting at about a 1/2 inch. Okay, pretty close. And the other side is 623, almost 5/8. 625 would be 5/8. So you got a 1/2 inch and 5/8. Well, the 1/2 inch side faces this way. Okay, so when we put this in, there, put the camera down. Okay, the 1/2 inch side faces the forward gear like this. If you have one of these so this is a GLM gear, and it's not marked. You have to measure it. So that's 1/2 inch and 5/8. But the advantage of the GLM gear is I've been using them for quite a while. The clutch dogs, and they seem to work better than almost all the other ones I've used. Don't know why. A little bit stronger. One thing I've noticed for sure, that the teeth where they engage are a little bit sharper. It's almost as if they're purposely rounded off on the OEM ones. Not that I'm knocking the OEM ones, because you know they work quite well too. But when you've taken some, the sharper tooth works better when you've machined some off. Okay, like when you've taken 15 thou off and 15 thou there. If you have a sharp tooth, it basically just gave it back to you what you took off. Seems to stand up quite well, this combination of machining the lugs and putting the GLM clutch dog in. Anyway, I'll put this back together and show you a final product. Okay, this is the end product. Once we got it back together, it's now pressure testing. Just gonna flip this around. It was a used shaft. We used the same shaft. We just put new bearings in. You can see the gasket compound down underneath and on top of the O-ring. If you put a little bit too much, it does not hurt. It also needs to be underneath the 4 bolts that are going around. And once again, in here, okay, on the bearing carrier where the seals go, you need 680 Loctite on the inside of the bearing carrier and on the seals before you install them. Okay, when I first did this at the beginning, I did not have a used set of stuff, but I just finished working on another job, and what do you know? We're gonna probably end up doing the exact same thing we did for this. It's up to the customer. He has a choice of machining the gears, or he can go with a brand new set. It's up to him. So the clutch dog. The clutch dog is no question. You can't keep it or machine it. If you were to machine it, it would be too short. You wouldn't have enough travel. You'd only be able to set it to go into forward or reverse, but not both. So that wouldn't work. So, but what I do want to show you is a rounded off one. It's about 1/8 of an inch down. You can see there it's all rounded off. Okay, and that's a new GLM one, and you can see it's relatively sharp. It's got maybe 10th hour radius or something, very, very little. Okay, so you know, on this one here, we're losing almost 1/8 of an inch of travel. And then to make matters worse, I'll just show you the gear set here. But okay, so there's the gear set there. It's radiused off. Okay, and all pretty much the same. I'm going to show you the end view here if I can. Okay, and you can see that it's not all the way down. If we take about 15 to 20 thou off of this one, it'll actually get to a sharp surface area down here. Okay, it's only we get rid of that, and then it will engage with a full body of the lug. Okay, this should be the forward gear. This one here, this should be worn the most. We got a reverse gear here. Okay. And you can see this one is worn not that much. So we'll only have to go 5 or 10 thou off of this to get a reasonably sharp edge on it with just a small amount of chamfer. This is the reverse gear. So this gear set basically, you know, probably is just wear. It's even on both sides almost. So just it was the shift cable was correct. It was set correct. It could be that the idle speed is too high, and that's why it got the really chewed up the clutch dog here big time. And that's quite a gouge in there. That's down 1/8 of an inch or so. So it's been going into gear a little bit too fast, or it may have a lot of hours on it. I don't really know. But what I do know is that rather than change the forward and pinion gear or the full set and spend $600 on gears, or even forward and pinion is going to be, you know, $350, $400, something like that. You can machine these, you know, machine the forward gear and just replace the clutch dog. You know, it takes about a half an hour or so to do the forward gear, if that. And on, you know, once again, you have to look at the teeth. Okay, I mean, we haven't sandblasted this and cleaned it up, okay, but it looks pretty good to me. So this is a typical assessment of a set that you can, you know, where he doesn't it coming out of gear on him, but we can just machine the forward and reverse and give him a new clutch dog with a sharp edge on it there, and it'll give him another 250 to 300 hours. You know, or the customer may choose to go with a new set. It's totally up to the customer. You know, but there's nothing wrong when you machine these down. It works quite well. But obviously, it you know, nothing can compete with a brand new set of gears. So, and especially works well when you change the detent. Like if you change the detent and the shift cable, you will get over travel, so you will get the full amount of the clutch inserting. So when the clutch inserts, even though you take some off, it will still lock in because it's wider than the pinion gear. So although you take, you know, 10-15 thou off, it will still engage totally, and you will still have the full 5-degree angle. So it's questionable that it's almost as good as new, actually, after you finish machining these. Depends on the circumstances and the gear set, but if they're polished like this, heel to toe, and you got the shims and everything, and you can put them all back, you can't knock an old set. Like the old gear sets are definitely stronger than the new sets. So whether it be OMC or not, you know, the old OMC ones are much stronger than the newer ones. We have, you know, a lot better luck when we have an old boat, for instance, where it's really heavy and has a 235 horsepower, I usually suggest that the guy go with a used set, because quite often he'll break the new set trying to wear it in because there's just too much pressure on the teeth and they're not blended in. The heel to toe, the polish mark here, has high spots on a new set. On a used set, you know, it's all blended in, especially if you reuse the same shims. So, and it's advantageous to me to sell you a new set of gears rather than tell you to reuse the old ones. So take this advice at whatever way you want. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope this helps. I hope it saves some of you some money, especially younger guys who's got a used boat and, you know, trying to, you know, get just on a budget and trying to have some entertainment on the weekends on a budget. I know I used to be one of those people. So I hope this helps you out. If you have any questions, phone the order desk, give me a call. And the parts and everything you need in the seal kit and the clutch dog, it's available at sterndrive.info. So that's sterndrive.info, or you could look it up on Google. It would be TC Electronics /marine. So T.C. Electronics /marine, and it even has I believe a map of the 2 locations on there. But if you're close to an international airport, most of the shipping you receive 2 days later, regardless of where you live, and it's the same flat rate, so it really doesn't matter where you live. Ships out of the 2 locations. Most of it comes out of Toronto, Canada, and the balance comes out of California if we don't have stock. Some of it, like if we're shipping to California, we ship from California, or Texas, we ship from California, but most of the rest of the United States, and especially all of Europe and overseas in Australia, ships out of Canada due to the flat rate we have. We have a great rate with FedEx. Thanks for watching, and if you could press the like button, it would help us. And if you need tech service, just give the order desk a call if you get stuck and you're not sure. You know, not sure about the gears, take a picture, send them to me. I'll have a look at it. I need a close-up of it though, but you know, you should be able to judge from these ones whether or not they're savable. You know, if it's 1/8 inch taken off, or if your gears have a 1/8 inch rounded off lug, you won't be able to use them. You know, if it's a 1/16 or less, you can usually reuse them. Thanks for watching.